First contact and devastation. The skies turned wrong on a Wednesday morning, not with storms or unnatural colors, but with a wrongness that pricked at the most primitive parts of the human brain. Birds fell silent across continents. Dogs howled in backyards from Tokyo to Toronto. And in observatories around the world, astronomers stared at their screens in disbelief as thousands of objects simultaneously appeared in Earth's orbit, as if they'd always been there, but had simply chosen this moment to become visible. Commander Elena Reyes was halfway through her morning coffee at Peterson Space Force Base when the alerts began flooding in. At 42, she'd spent 20 years preparing for first contact scenarios, yet nothing in her training had covered this. No gradual approach, no signals, no warning whatsoever. What exactly am I looking at? She demanded, scanning the orbital tracking displays that now showed countless objects where there had been only satellites moments before. We're counting over 3,000 distinct objects, Commander, Lieutenant Park replied, his voice unnaturally steady. They appeared simultaneously across all monitoring systems. No approach trajectory. They were just, suddenly there. Elena leaned forward, studying the patterns. Distribution. Global. Clustered most heavily above major population centers. Park swallowed hard. And their changing formation. On the screens, the objects began to shift, reorganizing themselves with impossible precision. Not the chaotic movements of natural phenomena or even conventional spacecraft. These moved like a single organism with thousands of components. Get me the Pentagon. Now. But the call never went through. Across the globe, communication systems began failing in cascading waves. First military channels, then civilian networks, satellites, fiber optics, even hardened systems designed to survive nuclear attacks. Within 17 minutes of the object's appearance, humanity's global communication infrastructure had effectively collapsed. Marcus Chen noticed the cellular outage first. As lead engineer for Chicago's power grid monitoring systems, he was used to occasional network hiccups. But when the backup systems failed simultaneously, he knew something was catastrophically wrong. Get the analog systems online, he ordered his team, gesturing to the old-fashioned equipment kept as a last resort. Something big is happening. Through the office windows, Marcus could see people on the streets below looking up at the sky, pointing. He followed their gaze and felt his breath catch. Against the clear blue morning sky, something massive was descending slowly toward the city center, a dark, geometric shape that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Not one object, but hundreds moving in perfect synchronization to form a larger whole. "That's not ours," whispered his assistant, stating the obvious with quiet terror. Before Marcus could respond, every electronic device in the building died simultaneously. The lights, computers, even battery-powered equipment. In the sudden silence, they could hear the same thing happening across the city. Car engines stalling, aircraft falling silent overhead. And then came the pulse. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even particularly violent. A ripple of energy emanated from the alien formation, spreading outward in concentric circles. As it passed through buildings, they simply collapsed, not explosively, but as if the fundamental forces holding their atoms together had been momentarily switched off. Glass, steel, and concrete flowed like water before resolidifying in broken, twisted forms. Marcus had just enough time to pull his team under the reinforced monitoring desk before the pulse hit their building. He felt a strange vertigo, as if gravity itself had hiccuped. The floor beneath them sagged but held. When they emerged, half the Chicago skyline had been transformed into an alien sculpture of broken architecture. Similar scenes unfolded across the planet. Within hours, every major city had been subjected to the same treatment, not obliterated, but fundamentally altered. The death toll climbed into the millions, yet strangely, the aliens seemed to be exercising restraint. Their weapons could clearly reduce matter to its component atoms, yet they were being selective. 3 days after first contact, Alina Reyes found herself in what remained of the United Nations headquarters in Geneva. The building was largely intact, having been spared the worst of the attacks. Representatives from surviving government and military organizations had gathered here, using courier networks and surviving low-tech communication methods to coordinate what remained of human resistance. They've established ground forces in 97 locations worldwide, Alina reported to the Emergency Council, pointing to a paper map spread across the conference table. Their tactics don't match any known military doctrine. They're not securing territory or resources in any pattern we can discern. General Williams, formerly of NATO Command, leaned forward. What are they doing then? They appear to be sampling. Alina's voice was clinical, masking her horror at what she'd witnessed. They're collecting specimens, not just biological. They're taking soil, water, building materials, technological artifacts, everything. An inventory, suggested a scientist from the Chinese delegation. They're cataloging Earth. Alina nodded grimly. That's our assessment as well. But there's something else. She produced several photographs taken by reconnaissance teams. They're paying special attention to sites of human creativity. Museums, theaters, even advertising billboards. They spend hours analyzing children's drawings in abandoned schools. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. So they're not just here for our resources, Williams concluded. No, Alina confirmed. They seem particularly interested in how we create, how we think, how we express ourselves. What followed was humanity's first coordinated counterattack. Using remaining aircraft and ground forces equipped with EMP weapons developed from studying the alien technology, military units launched simultaneous strikes against alien ground forces in 12 locations. The attacks were meticulously planned, coordinated using technologies the aliens hadn't disabled, hardened analog systems, primitive radio, even signal flares and runners. The counterattack was an unmitigated disaster. The aliens had allowed these attacks to proceed, seemingly curious about human military response. When the weapons finally deployed, the aliens simply absorbed the energy, redirected it, or ignored it entirely. Of the 12 strike teams, only one returned with survivors. But they brought back something invaluable. Confirmation of Marcus Chen's theory. Marcus had been recruited as part of a civilian science team analyzing alien behavior and technology. While military analysts focused on weapons and tactics, Marcus had been watching patterns. Power consumption, movement, communication. They're not individual entities, he explained to Alina during a secure briefing. Not in the way we understand individuals. They're components of a hive mind. A single consciousness distributed across thousands of bodies. Like insects? Alina asked. More like neurons in a brain, Marcus corrected. Each ship, each soldier is just a cell in a larger organism. But here's the important part. They have no concept of independent thought, no creativity, no imagination. Alina frowned. That's why they're so interested in our art and culture. Exactly. Marcus pointed to the data they'd gathered. They can replicate anything they see with perfect precision, but they cannot create something new. It's completely outside their understanding. That's why they haven't simply wiped us out. We possess something they cannot comprehend but desperately want to. So what good does that do us? Williams demanded. We can't fight them with paintings and poetry. Marcus smiled faintly. Actually, General, that's exactly what I'm proposing. As night fell over what remained of Geneva, Alina found Marcus on the roof of the headquarters, staring up at the alien ships that now hovered visibly in the night sky, no longer bothering to conceal themselves. Your plan is insane, she said without preamble. You realize that? Completely, he agreed, not looking away from the ships. But do you have a better one? She didn't. None of them did. After a week of devastating defeat, humanity was running out of conventional options. How can you be sure they'll respond the way you predict? She asked. We're betting everything on alien psychology we barely understand. Marcus finally turned to her, his expression illuminated by the strange lights emanating from the alien vessels overhead. Because they've shown us exactly what they value, what they don't understand, what they want. He gestured toward the heavens. They could have simply taken our resources, wiped us out, but they've been studying us, trying to understand something fundamentally human. Creativity, Elena murmured. Imagination, Marcus corrected. The ability to conceive of things that don't exist and then make them real. To them, it must seem like magic, like we're accessing some dimension they can't perceive. Elena stared at the alien ships, thinking of the billions of lives now depending on Marcus' theory being correct. If you're wrong, if I'm wrong, we're no worse off than we are now, he finished for her. But if I'm right, we have the one weapon they have no defense against. She nodded slowly. Operation Lazarus begins at dawn. As they watched, one of the alien ships shifted position, moving directly overhead as if it had sensed their conversation and was curious about its contents. Its surface rippled with impossible geometries, reminding Elena that they were facing something truly alien, not just in origin, but in fundamental nature. Yet for all their technological superiority, these beings had revealed a crucial weakness. They had come across vast interstellar distances not to conquer or destroy, but to understand, to learn, and perhaps, Elena thought grimly, to teach them something in return. The unexpected counterstrike. Dawn broke over a transformed Earth. 7 days since first contact, the planet had become unrecognizable. Major cities lay partly reshaped into alien geometries. The skies were filled with hovering craft of various sizes. Global infrastructure had collapsed in most regions, with pockets of surviving technology, maintained only where the aliens permitted it. Yet humanity persisted. In the subterranean levels beneath Geneva, Operation Lazarus came to life. What had once been a nuclear shelter had been transformed into something unprecedented. A hybrid of war room and art studio, of laboratory and theater. Status report, Elena commanded, striding into the central command area where representatives from surviving human factions had gathered. Northern American quadrant is ready, came the first response, followed by confirmations from Asian, European, African, and Southern quadrants. By some miracle, or perhaps by alien design, enough communication infrastructure remained for the global operation. Marcus stood beside a strange device in the center of the room. It resembled a satellite dish, but its components were a bizarre fusion of salvaged alien technology and human ingenuity. The transmitter network is operational, he confirmed. We can broadcast to all alien clusters simultaneously. Elena surveyed the assembled team, scientists, soldiers, and most crucially, creators, artists, musicians, writers, dancers, programmers, and children, specially selected for their imaginative capabilities. Explain to me one more time how this works, General Williams demanded, eyeing the device skeptically. Marcus nodded. The aliens communicate through quantum-entangled particles. That's how they maintain perfect coordination across their distributed consciousness. We've modified salvaged components from their ground units to tap into this network. He pointed to the makeshift transmitter. This will let us broadcast directly into their collective mind. And what exactly are we broadcasting? Williams asked. Elena answered for him. Imagination. Pure human creativity. The one thing they cannot replicate or defend against. The plan had evolved from Marcus' observation of the aliens' fascination with human creativity. If they wanted to understand human imagination, Operation Lazarus would give them more than they could handle, a concentrated burst of pure creative thought, transmitted directly into their hive mind. Think of it as cognitive overload, Marcus explained. Their consciousness evolved to process information in rigid, logical patterns. Our chaotic creativity is fundamentally incompatible with their thought structure, like introducing a computer virus, but for an organic mind. You're sure this won't just give them exactly what they came for? Williams pressed. They want to understand creativity, Marcus replied, not be overwhelmed by it. There's a difference between studying fire and having your house burned down. Elena checked her watch. Satellite imagery confirms alien forces are concentrated at the sampling sites. All teams are in position. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each section leader. This is humanity's last coordinated offensive. If this fails, she left the sentence unfinished. Everyone understood the stakes. Marcus took his position at the central console, surrounded by the diverse group of creators who would provide the payload for their attack. Children with sketchpads, composers with simple instruments, writers with notebooks, programmers with remaining functional computers. Begin Phase 1, Elena ordered. Across the globe, surviving military and civilian units initiated diversionary actions, not direct attacks, which had proven futile, but strange, unpredictable behaviors designed to focus alien attention. In Tokyo, hundreds of people released paper lanterns carrying unique childish drawings. In Nigeria, villages performed synchronized dances that made no logical pattern. Near Sydney, boats formed seemingly random formations on the harbor. The aliens responded predictably, shifting resources to observe and analyze these curiosities. Sampling teams descended to collect the artifacts and record the behaviors. They're taking the bait, Elena confirmed as reports filtered in. Phase 2. At her command, Marcus activated the transmitter. The creators around him began their work, not creating final products, but engaging in the pure act of imagination. Children invented impossible creatures. Musicians improvised wild melodies. Writers crafted stories with no logical constraints. Programmers coded software that defied conventional algorithms. The transmitter captured not just their outputs but the neurological patterns of creativity itself, the chaotic, associative leaps of human imagination, and beamed them directly into the aliens' quantum communication network. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then the first reports came in. Alien ships over Paris are showing irregular movement patterns. Ground forces in Mexico City have stopped all activity. The formation over Beijing is breaking apart. Marcus watched the readings on his console with growing excitement. It's working. Their network is destabilizing. They can't process the information we're sending. On screens around the command center, they watched as alien ships began moving erratically, some colliding with each other. Ground forces froze in place or moved in confused circles. The perfect coordination that had made them unstoppable was disintegrating. Increase transmission power, Elena ordered. All creators, maximum output. The humans around Marcus intensified their efforts. Children scribbling wildly, musicians playing with abandoned fervor, programmers coding impossible algorithms. The transmitter hummed dangerously, components glowing with heat. We're overloading the system, Marcus warned. Keep going, Elena insisted. We may not get another chance. Across the world, the alien response grew more chaotic. Ships began dropping from the sky, not crashing catastrophically, but settling to the ground as if their pilots had simply forgotten how to fly. The massive formations broke apart. Ground forces stood motionless like forgotten toys. And then something unexpected happened. A new signal pattern emerged on Marcus' display, alien communication, but in a form they hadn't seen before. Less structured, more organic. They're adapting, Marcus realized with alarm. Changing their communication protocols. Is it failing? Williams demanded. Marcus studied the readings, confusion giving way to astonishment. No, they're mimicking us. Their network is reorganizing itself to accommodate creative thought patterns. Outside, the great mothership that had been hovering over Geneva began to transform. Its perfectly geometric surface rippled and flowed, forming new shapes that seemed almost artistic, curves and spirals, where before there had only been angles and straight lines. What's happening? Elena asked, transfixed by the sight. Marcus stared at his readings in disbelief. I think we just gave them what they wanted, but not in the way they expected. We didn't just show them creativity. We forced them to experience it directly. So we've lost. Williams asked bitterly. I don't think it's that simple, Marcus replied, watching as alien ships worldwide began mimicking the transformation of the Geneva mothership, their perfect formations dissolving into more organic flowing arrangements. The transmitter suddenly sparked and died, overwhelmed by the alien response. But by then, it had done its work. A new signal began broadcasting worldwide, not through the human network, but through the alien's own communication system. Every remaining functional human receiver picked it up simultaneously, translating it into a form humans could understand. It wasn't language exactly, more like impressions, emotions, concepts, wonder, discovery, transformation, gratitude. They're talking to us, Elena whispered. We came to understand. You showed us directly. Changed us. Liberation. Marcus looked at Elena, his expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. We didn't defeat them. We freed them. Over the following days, the nature of the contact transformed completely. The aliens, who began referring to themselves with a term that roughly translated as the unified, explained through increasingly sophisticated communication that they had evolved as a perfectly logical, perfectly ordered collective consciousness. Their technological advancement had been extraordinary, but they had reached an evolutionary dead end, unable to innovate beyond incremental improvements of existing knowledge. They had detected Earth's creative output, our music, stories, art, bleeding into space through our broadcasts. To a species that had never known imagination, these signals represented something mystical, incomprehensible, and desperately desirable. So they're just leaving? Williams asked skeptically. Elena shook her head, reviewing the translated communications. Not exactly. They're withdrawing most of their forces as a gesture of goodwill. But they're proposing an exchange, technology for creative collaboration. They want to establish permanent diplomatic relations. After everything they did, someone objected. The deaths, the destruction. Marcus looked troubled. They claimed they didn't understand that their sampling would cause harm. Their concept of individual existence was so alien that they didn't recognize our structures as habitations or our bodies as discrete beings. He shrugged helplessly. It sounds impossible, but from what we've learned of their psychology, it might actually be true. The debate raged for days. Some humans demanded retribution. Others saw unprecedented opportunity. The aliens, for their part, began assisting with reconstruction efforts, their technology restoring infrastructure at an astonishing rate. What they could not restore were the lives lost, a debt they acknowledged but could never repay. 6 months after first contact, Elena and Marcus stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed International Space Station, rebuilt with alien assistance to be 10 times its original size. Do you think we made the right choice? Elena asked, watching as alien ships and human spacecraft moved together in the orbital lanes below, accepting their offer. Marcus considered the question carefully. I don't know if there was a right choice, but we did something uniquely human. We improvised. We imagined a different outcome than total victory or total defeat. Creativity saved us, Elena mused. In a way, it saved both species, Marcus corrected. They were stagnating. Perfect but unable to evolve further. We were chaotic but innovative. He gestured to the station around them, a blend of human and alien design. Now we're both something new. Beyond the viewport, Earth was healing. Alien technology had accelerated the cleanup of environmental damage and provided clean energy solutions humans had only dreamed of. In return, humanity was teaching the unified how to create, how to imagine possibilities beyond the logical and predictable. They're like children discovering art for the first time, Elena observed, having spent considerable time with the alien representatives. Everything amazes them. Poetry, music, even bad jokes. Marcus nodded. And we're learning from them too, how to channel our chaos, how to build with more precision and efficiency. A communication alert chimed softly. The first joint human-alien expedition was preparing to depart, heading to a nearby star system where the Unified had detected signs of another sentient species. Humans would serve as creativity ambassadors, helping the Unified make first contact in a more diplomatic fashion than their arrival on Earth. "Ready for your new command?" Marcus asked. Elena straightened her uniform, a hybrid of traditional military dress and alien design elements that somehow worked together harmoniously. As ready as anyone can be to explore another solar system. As they watched, the expedition vessel moved into position for departure, its hull displaying an artistic rendering of human and alien forms standing together beneath a starfield. Not the perfect geometry the Unified would have created before, nor the purely human aesthetic that would have preceded contact, but something new, a creative collaboration between species. They struck without warning, Marcus reflected, but I don't think anyone could have predicted our answer. Or that the greatest weapon in humanity's arsenal, Elena added with a small smile, would turn out to be imagination. The ship engaged its engines, conventional thrusters supplemented by alien technology that bent space-time in ways humans were only beginning to understand. As it accelerated away from Earth, it left behind a planet forever changed. Not conquered, not destroyed, but transformed by the most unexpected first contact in human history. And perhaps, though neither Elena nor Marcus said it aloud, transformed for the better.